A lot has changed since those first highly charged parades. In fact, BC has been home to a number of significant LGBTQ+ stories, both good and bad. Let's take a look at some of the highlights. The 1980s saw the rise of the AIDS epidemic, and Vancouver was not spared. Activists like Kevin Brown smuggled antiviral drugs into the country in defiance of federal laws. He also organized Canada's first AIDS protest before he died of the disease at age 39. Around this same time, Burnaby NDP MP Sven Robinson challenged the status quo, becoming the first sitting Canadian member of Parliament to come out as gay, a decision prompting plenty of backlash. The lack of public support carried into 1990, when organizers of Gay Games 3 opted to rebrand the event as Celebration 90 in order to avoid controversy and even violence. Some protests and homophobic graffiti did surface, but organizers deemed the event a success. Despite that, so-called obscene materials had Canadian customs officials unhappy with a local bookstore. Little Sisters on Davie Street spent 16 years fighting for the right to import LGBTQ+ literature without scrutiny. The case went to the Supreme Court of Canada, and it sided with the bookstore owners. 2001 saw a national outpouring of support after Aaron Webster, a local gay man, was beaten to death in Stanley Park. Many consider the attack a hate crime, but a BC Supreme Court judge said there was no evidence Webster's sexuality played a role. 2 years after Aaron Webster's death, though, BC ushered in a big change, allowing same-sex couples to get married in this province. While many people are prepared for pancake breakfasts and parties, pride remains deeply rooted in politics, with many still fighting for more progress. Throughout the week, we plan to bring you those perspectives as they're playing out in BC as part of our new series, Pride and Progress. To start, though, we thought it would be a good idea to look back on Vancouver's history with Pride. While the celebrations feel like a staple every summer, the city's Pride Parade is less than 40 years old, an ode to marches that had been happening in the U.S. as early as 1970. Now, someone who has been on the front lines of the fight for LGBTQ rights here in Vancouver was in that parade that you just saw, is activist David Myers. David, what stands out in your mind most about that first parade?
Well, it was full of tension because we had hate literature distributed in Burnaby and Port Moody in the month before, telling people that if they should see a queer on the street, they should hurt them if there's no witnesses, and that the Nazis had it right and that they should be exterminated. We had somebody passing out hate literature at the baseball game during the events. Although they didn't pass it out, they hired a couple 10-year-olds to pass it out. And we had told people if they were afraid of coming out but wanted to be part of it, they could wear a paper bag with holes cut out for eyes. A few did, most didn't.
How scared were you?
Well, it was a little better because the year before we'd been turned down for a parade permit by City Council, but we got involved in the 1980s civic elections, and the balance had changed on City Council so that there was enough votes to get a parade permit. We at least had that, and it was much. We had a proclamation coming from the mayor that week, so it was a somewhat better, more optimistic point.
But you had to get involved in that political fight to essentially get out the vote.
Yes.
What do you make of the fact that it's come from that place where there was so much hatred and fear to now where this is one of the biggest events in this city? What has it been like to watch that?
I'm delighted, of course. Sometimes I'm astounded that we've come this far. I'm also astounded that we had to come this far. But I always have to remind people they can't rest on their laurels. A famous human rights officer for Vancouver City, Sheila Day, once said, human rights is like housework. You have to keep running just to stay in place. Mm-hmm. And your rights are always on the line. The rights of everybody counts. You have to stand up for everybody's rights, because an attack on anyone's rights is an attack on everyone's rights.
What about the relationship and how it's evolved between police in this city from when that parade first began to now, where they have a huge presence?
Well, even in 1977, we started the Police Gay Liaison Committee, and some people in the city hall were encouraging the police to have a more active involvement with the community and get to know them. And I think that was very good. Yet, even in 1979, we still had demonstrations at the courthouse, the old courthouse, now the art gallery, because of big things that happened that the police didn't do much about. In fact, prior to our parade in 1980, Seafest had been having these big events every summer. And there'd be lots of drunkenness, and yahoos from Surrey and other places were coming in and getting drunk and attacking gay people. A crowd of about 20 of them went after a gay couple along the beach area. They got in their car and they turned the car over on its roof, and the people had to run for Davie Street for their lives, basically.
Did the police do anything?
Nothing came out of it.
And what about seeing from there to now, where we have this police involvement? How much did it take to get both sides to come together like that?
It took a constant conversation, and I think it was a very valuable conversation. I believe the police have earned their right to be part of our events, as well as all the straight supporters. They've become gay, lesbian supporters, supporters of the gay, lesbian rights movement. And I do appreciate the Black Lives Matter's concerns about racism still in police departments. Ours is not as bad, I don't think, as Toronto, but that's an issue we have to work with, and I don't think police officers should be banned from participating, even in uniform, in art, because they've earned their right to be there because they changed. The homophobia in the police department has gotten a lot better.
What do you think is the next step in the evolution for the Pride movement and the continuation and perhaps acceleration of defending people's rights in this city?
Well, in this country, we've been doing pretty well. As you can see in the U.S., there's still the issue for the trans persons, and I think that's true around the world. I was very gratified when Secretary of State Hillary Clinton made her speech back in, I think, 2011 to the United Nations and said human rights includes gay and lesbian and trans rights, and everybody's rights have to be protected. That was a great statement she made.
Right. David Myers, we very much appreciate your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.